go. The webinar has started. Good morning, people of accountancy and bookkeeping. I hope you are well. I can see the participant numbers rising, which is always a good sign. Welcome to self-assessment, how to get ahead of the game. We had several hundred registrants, so I look forward to welcoming you, as many of you as possible, for this morning's chat. I can see someone has put a message in the chat box, and my money is on Claire Kendall because she likes to be on every single one of these webinars and always likes to put the first pop in the chat box. Why don't you sling in like where you're dialing in from, folks? It's always nice to sort of hear where everyone's dialing in from. We'll just give a minute or two, and then as the participant numbers continue to rise, we'll get started shortly. Brilliant. There we go. Let's see what we got. Stockport, York, Lancashire. It wasn't Claire, it was Ian. Well done, Ian. Morning. Morning, Caroline. Morning, Steve. Morning, Will. Christopher Clark, Harpenden. I am just around the corner. I used to live in St Albans. I live in Markier. Great. Norwich, Surrey, Derbyshire, Stockport, Leeds, Rugby. Very topical at the moment. Norwich. Scotland. Watford. Brilliant. Thanks, folks. Right. Let me just move this up to the top. Let's get cracking. So, agenda this morning. So we will run through a little bit of housekeeping. I'll take us through setting the scene. We'll jump into the main meat of the session today, which is a panel discussion. There'll be a short Q&A kind of opportunity at the end if you've got any questions that you want to ask, and we'll touch on Q&A and chat and all that kind of stuff as I go through the housekeeping. And then for those of you that haven't seen FreeAgent before or haven't seen FreeAgent for a while, we shall have a kind of live demo at the end. My colleague Louise will take us through that. It'll just be 10 or 15 minutes, just very high level look and feel of what FreeAgent is all about. Cool. Bit of housekeeping. So today's session will be recorded. Now, I don't think I've ever done one of these webinars, and I've done dozens of them now, where somebody hasn't asked whether the webinar will be recorded or not. It will be recorded. You will have a link sent out to you. You can watch it at your leisure on demand. If you've got to drop off after a few minutes or you're joining us later, which often people do, so you'll get a link to it. It will be hosted on the FreeAgent website. It's all good. You can get the CPD if you watch it on record as well, so you don't need to worry about that. So we have the chat box going, and then we also have, you'll notice, a Q&A as well. So the chat box is for like your thoughts and opinions. We might ask for people to just chuck some stuff in there as we go through, just to gauge how people are feeling about what we're talking about and the various different topics. And the Q&A is for specific questions that you've got that you would like someone from the team to answer. So we've got Mark, Louise, and Natalie on the flight deck today, and Georgia as well, who will be sort of answering the questions as we go through. So they're from the FreeAgent team. Any questions that you've got specifically for the panelists, just lodge them in the Q&A, and then we can potentially look at them at the end as part of the Q&A. The questions that we'd like today are sort of about the topics that we're talking about how we kind of gear up for self-assessment, and the various different things that we can do to make that process smoother. We're not so interested in questions that start with the phrase "I've got this one client that" and require specific potential accounting advice or anything like that. So if you've got those type of questions, feel free to sort of ping them over to us afterwards, or you can put them in and we'll get somebody to follow up with you. But that's the thrust of today. We have a polite and respectful policy on FreeAgent webinars. Now, it might come as a shock to probably everyone on this call that we have had the odd unruly individual on calls before. We've had to speak to ask them to politely calm down. It was a particularly emotive topic, MTD, but nonetheless, the polite and respectful policy was born. I kind of liken it a bit to sort of going to the cinema. Like if you're sitting in the cinema and someone's shouting at the screen, it kind of ruins everybody else's enjoyment. So please keep things polite and respectful. Chat away in the chat box if you want to, put your Q&As in, but if you can't be polite and respectful, then we will not hesitate to kick you out of the webinar, which I actually still can't believe I have to say on an accounting software webinar, but it's necessary. As we run through this, we will have some polls. So there are 4 polls, one sort of fairly early on, because what we find is that people join the webinar and then something comes that means they have to leave, and they wanted to express their interest in somebody following up with them after the webinar. So there'll be one early on. We have what we call an insight poll, which is 3 questions around how you view self-assessment and some of the bits and pieces that we're going to be talking about today. And then we have a couple more right at the end, one right at the end, and then one just as we're closing the main part of the webinar before the demo. There's nothing strenuous. You don't have to answer them if you want to, but it's just an opportunity to be found. We were running these webinars and people were then following up with us afterwards saying, I want to speak to somebody. How do I express my interest? So we just run these polls, most of them, 3 of them, to make sure that we've covered everybody who wants to speak to us then can speak to us. And then, as I said, we have got the FreeAgent demo at the end. So my wonderful colleague Louise will be taking us through the demo for the last sort of 10 or 15 minutes. That's kind of after the main webinar. So the panelists, you'll be more than welcome to drop off, unless you want to stick around, you're welcome to, but generally people don't. And then those of you that haven't seen FreeAgent for a while, or would haven't seen FreeAgent at all, you're more than welcome to stick around. You'll get 10-15 minutes of it. It's Louise's first one, so be kind to her. She's a bit of a superstar, so she'll be absolutely fine. Probably now quite worried because I've just said that, but don't worry, Louise, you will smash it. Cool. So today's webinar is CPD accredited. So we've now had CPD accreditation on our webinars and our accreditation and other various bits and pieces, our roadshows and all that kind of stuff now for over a year, I think. So what will happen afterwards is that you will get a link that's sent out for you to just kind of fill in a form to say, yes, I watched the webinar and I'm happy, and then yes, and then they'll send you the certificate. So you don't need to follow up on it. You don't need to worry about it. It comes out in the follow-up email and you'll be able to get hold of it. If it doesn't for some reason arrive, we'll be able to furnish you with it. So no problems at all. It would be remiss of me to not mention FreeAgent, given that it is FreeAgent that putting the webinar on today. We are here to talk more about self-assessment, but just for those of you that are interested, so we are award-winning accounting software for your micro and small businesses. Some highlights of FreeAgent, I guess. We have unrivaled support. Our support is really, really good, and we get constant good feedback about it. We won a bunch of awards, that Luca Awards. We're up for a couple more this year, Accounting Web Awards as well. We've got a really good mobile app as well, which you can kind of push out to your clients and really does help them to kind of get on board with the basic tasks of, creating invoices and wrecking a bank and reconsenting their bank feeds and all that kind of stuff. We are wholly owned by NatWest. So we are a wholly owned subsidiary of NatWest Bank. What does that mean? It means a whole bunch of stuff for us internally, but externally for you guys and girls, it means that you are able to have a FreeAgent account for free if you are a client of NatWest, Royal Bank of Scotland, Ulster Bank, or Metal Bank. So as long as you retain your bank account, then you are able to have FreeAgent for free. And if you want Metal, then Metal's also free as well. So as I said, you'll get to look at FreeAgent at the end, but that's just a couple of minutes on FreeAgent and sort of where we come from. Self-assessment, setting the scene. So why are we here today? What are we going to be talking about? So we're going to be talking about self-assessment and getting yourself set up for success. So, we've been in, self-assessment's been around for a long time, and accountants and bookkeepers have been dealing with self-assessment for a long time. And it's something that, creates a large amount of work in a short amount of time, and something that a lot of practices kind of still looking to improve as a process. So what we wanted to do today was to get together 3 different kind of viewpoints on self-assessment and 3 different kind of probably places in that journey, and myself to facilitate, so that we can kind of give you guys some tips, some tricks, some tactics, some strategies, some things that you can put in place probably now, and then probably some things that you can look to evolve over time as well, to make that sort of bottleneck of January the 31st look less painful than it can do if things don't go as smoothly as we would like them to. You can file your self-assessment through FreeAgent as well, which I probably should mention, but the main thrust of today is getting into the nitty gritty of, you know, why is it that we're here to talk about this stuff. So that's what we're going to be talking about. While I run this quick poll, where's polls gone? There's polls. For some reason, it's disappeared off my. There we go. Poll 1. So if you would like somebody from FreeAgent, now I feel this might feel a little bit premature, but if you'd like somebody from FreeAgent to get in touch with you to give you a shout about what's going on with FreeAgent and, you know, what we're up to, we do find that a lot of people join the webinar and then have to drop off at some point. So if you do want that to be the case, then say now, we'll just run this for 30 more seconds and make sure that we've sort of captured everybody who would like us to, you know, get in touch with them, and then we don't have to kind of go through that process manually. And then while we're kind of doing that, we will be jumping into kind of who's talking today next. So panelists, if you want to get your blurbs ready, I'll give it another, numbers are still going up, so I'll give it another 20 seconds. There will be more opportunities, I should say that. So if you are not sure and you'd rather see FreeAgent, listen to what we've got to yarn on about today first, then you're more than welcome to kind of hang around and say yes later in the webinar, because there'll be a couple more opportunities for you to say yes. Cool. I think we've reached a settlement there, so I'm going to end the poll. And then I'll jump on to myself. So I'm Tony Stevenson. I am a fellow of the Institute of Chartered Accountants for England and Wales. I am the Senior Digital Enablement Manager here at FreeAgent, which is a slightly ethereal title, which means that I get involved in lots of stuff: thought leadership, presenting webinars, talking on stages, that kind of stuff. I'm also part of the sales management team at FreeAgent, and I also work closely with a separate team of people to manage practice integrations as well, which is becoming an ever bigger part of my my day-to-day role. An interesting fact about me is that it's my mum's birthday today, so I'm going to give my mum a shout out. I really hope she's not listening. I really do, because she's nothing to do with accountancy, but I thought it'd be nice to shout out my mum's birthday today. Cool. So in no particular order, Hannah, you could introduce yourself, please. That'd be lovely.
Hi everyone, so I am Hannah Campbell and I run a TaxAssist Accountants franchise up here in Edinburgh. So we've got 4 shop fronts in and around Edinburgh, where we specialise in supporting small businesses and individuals. In terms of self-assessment for 22 to 23 returns, I would estimate we're going to be looking at filing around about 950 of those.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Hannah. Hannah also did a skydive at the weekend, which we were talking about before, and we'll probably come to a bit later as well. So, yes, I'm a big fan of skydiving, although I've only done it once. Will, over to you next, mate. If you could introduce yourself, that would be much appreciated.
Thanks, Tony. I jotted down on my notepad that you sounded like a pilot when you were doing your introductions. Welcoming the crew on board. We've got a fantastic crew.
Well, maybe that. So our original CEO Ed was a fast jet pilot in the RAF before he. And if you'll notice on the old FreeAgent branding, we had kind of like there's quite a lot of wings and nudges at aviation as part of the FreeAgent brand, or certainly the older brand. So maybe that's where it came from.
Maybe, yeah, you've passed
conscious inspiration.
Yeah, so I'm Will. I'm head of commercial at Pixie. I have never been an accountant. I've worked with accountants in the tech space for the last 7 or 8 years at a couple of different software businesses, but now run the sales, customer success and support team here at Pixie. So speak to hundreds of accountants on a monthly, yearly basis and hear the pains of self-assessment. So going to come at this from a kind of software perspective and how you can optimize using different systems. I can give an interesting fact about me if you like. I am a qualified scuba diving instructor.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Very nice. Where did you do that?
So I did most of my training in the UK and then did my final exams over in Egypt, in a place called Dahab in Egypt. And then I've dived lots of different places around the world, but haven't done it for a few years now. So kids have taken precedence.
Yeah, favorite place you've ever
definitely Egypt. If I was going to recommend anybody to go anywhere, it would be Egypt. It's better than the Great Barrier Reef or any of those places. It's just incredible. There's so much to see and do, and the visibility is fantastic. So
there, I've never done scuba diving, but I have done snorkeling, and I have snorkeled on the Great Barrier Reef, and it was I hate to say it, but a touch disappointing and sad to see how I think we were there at a particularly bad time for coral bleaching and stuff. But
Yeah.
yes, cool, excellent. Anna, could you introduce yourself? Much appreciated.
Yes, I'm Anna. I'm running a small accountancy practice in Bicester, Oxfordshire. We're using FreeAgent. As you can imagine, it's one of our main softwares, and it really helped us to streamline the process of getting ready for the self-assessment. We work with lots of small clients, individuals, self-employed, small limited companies from a wide range of industries. So we don't really specialize in one of them. And yeah, I love scuba diving, and I would love to try sky jumping. So I'm feeling very inspired today.
Yeah,
Introduction from you guys.
Oh, I did promise you, panelists, that this webinar would wend its way into some strange places, but we've got there fast, so that's really good. That's really good. Thank you very much, folks. So we'll jump into the panel discussion, but before we jump into the panel discussion, I will launch the next poll. So this is what we call our insight poll, which is just check I've got the right one. Yes, this one. So there's 3 questions on this poll, which just gives you an opportunity to just give us your thoughts on kind of where you sit. We will share the data, and what I'll do is I'm just going to kind of leave that one running while we start talking. I panicked the last time I did one of these because it took ages for people to actually start answering, and because you can see like the numbers as they go up, and then I realized it's because I had 3 questions to consider, and I just I was expecting them to click yes like they do normally straight away on the other ones, but we'll leave that one running while we jump into the questions, because I want to make sure we get plenty of opportunity to discuss all the different topics. So the first kind of question that we're going to chat through is sort of what are the key challenges that practices face in the lead up to self-assessment season. And for no other reason than she was first on the list of intros and therefore has had the longest break since talking, I'm going to go to Hannah first. What are your thoughts on that question statement, Hannah?
Yeah, I think for us, year after year, the biggest challenge is getting the information in from clients. And what I've found is, in particular, it's the legacy clients. So our practice is now 18 years old. It was started by my former business partner. So we've still got a lot of paperwork, bag of receipt clients who've been clients for 15 plus years who think they've got plenty of time. Even when we're calling them at the start of January, they think they've got plenty of time. So that's probably our biggest challenge.
That does not surprise me in the slightest. I was buzzing through LinkedIn this morning like I do, not especially before webinars, but particularly today. I think it's always seems to throw up something to talk about. And there's a chap called Keith Lesser who was talking about using WhatsApp for data collection, for information collection. And he was raving about WhatsApp as a data collection tool, in the sense that you're surprising people with a new method, and therefore it doesn't just kind of get lost in the black hole of the email inbox. So not one I've heard before, but an interesting one for consideration. So yeah, kind of look at his post. It was quite intriguing. And again, what you've said about the legacy clients, and they feel like, well, I'm early on the 1st of January. It's like, no, you're early on the 1st of August, maybe, or 1st of May, maybe, but you're not early on the 1st of January. Will, I'm sure you've got some thoughts on this from a technology perspective.
Yeah, I think it's probably similar to Hannah's, right? And I think we see it from another side, is that when we're trying to reach out or speak to accountants and bookkeepers, even in like October, November, December, they're already talking to us about being super busy, chasing people, trying to get information in, trying to start the process or continue the process for self-assessment. So that information is obviously key, and I see it firsthand, right? I've got no direct experience of filing a tax return myself or being on an accounting side of things, but I see it from my stepmom. Every year I see her at the kitchen table sorting through a pile of receipts, trying to take pictures of them or put them in different envelopes and send them across to her accountant. So I see that pain from a business owner's perspective. I think there's 2 things there, right? So it's the burden that the business owners see on the tax return, and then that frustration is then passed on to their accountant, right, for having to send that information in or get that information sent to them. I think as well, like a lot of the challenges come from there not being sort of clear processes and procedures in place. Like you might do it differently for one client to another client, and that really kind of muddies the waters when it comes to when you want that information in by across the practice. And especially as the practice grows, it then becomes complicated to manage those clients and manage the staff on how to do those processes.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I guess it can vary from client to client. It can vary from manager to manager, right? You know,
Yep.
Some people, unlike me, are proactive and do jump on this stuff straight away. And if it was me as a manager in accountancy, then it would be, oh yeah, I should probably ask them. It's the 15th of January. More of a thinker than a doer. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Now, Pixie has something to help with that, right? You've got like a kind of data collection.
Yeah. So we have, you can send, receive documentation. You can set up automatic emails in workflows as well. So you don't have to be on it to be able to chase those emails. It's just a case of setting that tax return workflow, and it will send the emails on whatever schedule that you want them to be sent on. And you can set your own kind of internal deadlines and internal due dates. And that's the same with kind of the majority of practice management solutions, and practice management solutions are very specific to each individual accounting firm. But yeah, obviously in Pixie, you can do all of that in the one place, and to make sure that you're managing that effectively, and making sure that your staff are managing it, like you, Tony, are managing it effectively, right?
You have to manage me effectively. Yeah. Difficult thing to do. Hence why I'm not in practice anymore. One of the many reasons why I'm not in practice anymore. Yeah, that makes sense. I think having a system, I guess, is probably the important thing, right? And it's good to hear what Pixie does. And I know, having spoken with yourself and with Kelso about this type of stuff, that it's, you know, it's a move within the profession to move that communication sort of out of people's decentralized inboxes and into a, you know, a system that the practice holds, that, you know, if that person's off, you can see where they're up to, or you know, if they leave, then you can see what's been done, and it's all sort of held centrally, and there's no you know, it helps to move more towards a standardization rather than it just being that same system of like, well, I just kind of do it when I feel like it or whatever. Yeah,
it's interesting that you mentioned WhatsApp there, because I think that's one of the gaps that we've identified as a business, is that you have a lot of tools that can automate emails to be sent out and automate that side of things, but there's not many tools that then automate WhatsApp messages or automate SMS messages going out to clients as well. And that's something that we're really focused on as a business, is building that into the product over the sort of coming months as well, to make sure that you've got all of those communication channels kind of covered, because WhatsApp is gold.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I think, like, over time, if you think back, I don't know, maybe 20 years perhaps, like, email was probably new to everyone, and they didn't have like a tidal wave of spam to deal with. So if you emailed people, then that was like, oh, that's good, that's a new thing, I hadn't, you know, hadn't seen that one before. And then people become like immune to it over time, don't they? And you've got to find a new way to improve that process. Brilliant, thanks, Will. Anna, your thoughts, key challenges, practices, space and lead up to self-assessment season.
Well, chasing clients is the obvious one. I just wanted to say that I love what you're saying about WhatsApp, because we started using WhatsApp about 2 years ago, I'd say, in a practice, and we've installed it on our computers as well, which really makes it easier, you know, be able to WhatsApp with people actually using the keyboard. And I mean, the outcome is amazing. We get information much quicker than from emails, especially that lots of our clients, and they run their business, they're on the road all the time. Maybe they fill theirs, maybe, you know, they don't sit in front of the computer all the time. And I think when you're out and about, being able to communicate with your accountant on WhatsApp is just brilliant. So chasing clients, definitely. But I think another challenge we have is that because of the self-assessment, such a long deadline in a way, because you would have 9 months to prepare the tax returns, we sometimes seem to concentrate on the other tasks. You know, you've got the VAT returns that need to be done, you've got the CAs, you've got payroll, and then we're like, oh, it's September, we need to start on self-assessment, which I think sometimes that was a challenge that we were trying to overcome, to concentrate on it early and to don't treat it like a task that actually starts after the summer, but to start early to work on it.
You do wonder sometimes if the deadline was end of June, they probably will get done by the end of June, right? You know, what's it called? Parkinson's law, where you expand the time the task takes to the time you've got allocated to do it, kind of thing. And it doesn't surprise me that, you know, you have clients that I do a couple of tax returns for friends and family, and it's, despite best efforts, it's always a January job. Cool. Thank you very much, folks. Before we do that, I'm just going to end the poll, and then I'm going to share the results. So question 1 was, when do you start getting your clients ready for self-assessment? 16% said immediately after the previous deadline, a few months before, the month before. 48% said it varies dependent on the client. Not wholly surprised. And then there'll be a bunch of the chat box if you want to go and have a look at that. What are the biggest challenges you face in the lead up to self-assessment? 81% of people said chasing clients for information. Working long hours, burnout 26%, getting other work done so I can focus on self-assessment 25%, dealing with HMRC only 24%, and only 4% getting the right tech and systems implemented. That is lower than I thought it would be.
Very
good. Nice to hear. Maybe we are preaching to the converted, right? We're all here on a technology webinar to listen to us talk. So, and if you're a free agent partner, how does free agent help you with self-assessment? Proves accuracy of client records. Most people said not free agent partner, which is great. We look forward to welcoming you into the family. Make self-assessment more efficient, reduce the stress from my practice. None of the above. Let me stop sharing that. Interesting. Next question, team. What are your strategies? What are your top strategies practices can put in place ahead of time? Now I wrote these questions and realised that one probably could be a bit clearer. So I think ahead of time, in order to, given how important the data chasing and data collection thing is, probably to alleviate that whole bottleneck type of thing. We're going to go with Anna first this time.
Well, we concentrate a lot about on using software. So I'm thinking here accounting software, but also practice management software.
Yeah.
I think really to handle the self-assessment, you do need both. And you can't really start when it's already the time to prepare the tax return. We need to start really at least a year ahead to see the benefits of the work we've done with the next tax return. So I think about 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, we started recommending FreeAgent to most of our self-employed clients. Because with what we were doing previously, we were using the accounting software for the limited companies, but still using Excel for self-employed clients. And it didn't seem wrong until we actually started using FreeAgent, recommending our clients to use Metal. To get FreeAgent for free as well. And then we see, wow, it takes us at least half of the time or quarter of the time we used to spend to prepare the tax return using FreeAgent comparing to Excel. So I mean, the proper accounting software, as long as we explain to clients how to use it, and as long as the clients are using it properly and we're checking it throughout the year, this is brilliant because it really saves us the time on preparing the self-assessment. But like I've mentioned, apart from that, we also need a practice management software. We actually using the accountancy manager. I guess it's probably similar to the other softwares where it would talk to HMRC, it would talk to Companies House, and we can, what's most important, we can automate the reminders, the chasing. So we send the first chasing email on the 6th of April. And then we get some outcome, as you can imagine, probably not too much to start with. But then we set it in the way that after a month, there's another reminder, and there is another one. And we can also update within the software what we actually need from clients. So we can request all the records to start with. Then we can change it to part records. So I must say, I think we've done already half of our self-assessments for this year. And I don't think we chased one client yet, because apart from the automated chasing. So I would say that half of them we were able to do just using the automated chasing. And now we need to concentrate on the other half that doesn't really respond to the automated email. So we'll need to personalize it a bit.
Indeed. I think the idea of sort of it being it becoming an ongoing effort on the software, rather than it just being kind of like, here's my bag, here's my box, here's my cash in a brown envelope for you to deal with this pile of stuff that that I need to deal with every year, and in January, moving them onto that system definitely helps to just not then like, oh, I've got to get it all together. It's just what I'm conducting my business, and it spits out what I need, and there's some work to tidy it up, but not that same scenario that you described, Will, of was it your mum, did you say, or your sister?
Yeah,
stuff on the table.
Exactly that.
My mate Jack the plasterer, who turns up every year with his box of smoke-stained receipts and excuses as to why he hasn't got records for all these expenses and incomes that have come through, and we piece it all together. But cool, that makes sense. Yeah, that's good. Will, go on, Anna, carry on.
No, I would say that absolutely. I mean, that's why we love using FreeAgent, because we actually start working on the tax returns throughout the year. So all the bookkeeping work, everything what you're saying, all the receipts, all the transactions are explained. So there is no more bringing us envelope full of receipts or bringing a shoebox full of receipts. But the bookkeeping is actually done when the tax year ends, and then it's just the tax.
Excellent. Will, I'm going to go to you next.
Yeah, I wanted to just pick up on some of the poll responses, like that kind of tie into this comment and kind of tie into this question as well. There's a bit of a contradiction there when people are saying that they're struggling to chase people for information, but they're okay with their software setups. Like, ultimately, that kind of contradicts itself with what you just said, Anna, right? People are using FreeAgent effectively means that you don't have to chase as much for that kind of information or that data from those clients. So there's a bit of a contradiction in those poll responses from some of the people that are on this webinar. And I think that's really important, is the best strategies are having systems in place to be able to execute on the plan that you want to have. And there was another response, like, varies depending on clients when you start chasing for those tax return information. I think, again, yes, obviously some clients have different nuances, but the majority of them are going to be fairly straightforward or fairly similar. So why should you not start that process for everybody at the same time and follow the same sort of process and structure for everyone? Because then you know that everything is going to get ticked off and everything is going to get put in place when it needs to be done. And setting yourself, someone said in the chat as well that, what was it? It was a great quote. Time with no boundaries is harder to manage. So you set up that deadline period of having 9 months, you're going to work to that 9 months deadline. Whereas if you set yourself some internal deadlines of when you need that information by and when you want to do pieces of work by, that allows you to manage that time much more effectively. And it's the same in any business, really, not just in accountancy, right? You want to have deadlines for different projects or different tasks that you're working on. Otherwise, it just disappears into the ether and you end up doing it a week before it's due. I think that's a really important thing that practices can put in place, is not just having systems to manage it, but having internal deadlines to work towards, so everybody knows that this is when we should receive all the information from all of our tax return clients, and this is when we should start that work on that process.
It's made me think, actually, and I'll continue to ponder this type of stuff because I really like it when data points throw up oddities. But you're right, and there's a delta there between something, and it's either the importance of software in that process. So being asked, have you struggled with that? And the answer is no, but I'm struggling with something else, and not putting those two things together, that the software should in some form or other help to alleviate that. Yep. Whether that's direct data collection or whether that's the ongoing nature of, ongoing bookkeeping. Having implemented first Xero and now FreeAgent, the two firms that I've done implementation for, it's not uncommon. It's just more common than not to see software sort of implemented, but not sort of optimized and maximized the potential from it. So
100%, yeah, I think that's a pain across the whole industry, right? Lots of people get magpie syndrome and sign up to every single piece of software and then don't use it effectively. I think that's really important. Like, implementing software is fine, but if you're not actually using it to solve the pain points that you implemented that piece of software for, then you haven't implemented it effectively. You've just got a piece of software that you recommend to your clients or use internally.
What I call a tech splat instead of a tech stack.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a software that are just sitting around looking great, costing you money. You got some free swag in the post, you know.
Got some logos on your website, and that's
yeah, exactly right. This idiot called Tony rings you up and says you want to be on a webinar, that kind of stuff. But and the other one that I see is that if you've got a bad system and you take out whatever was in that bad system and then replace it with a piece of software, but don't look at the underlying system, then you've still got a bad system. And like that bit of tech is just a part of, you know, this whole process and a wider business. It's not, you know, that I always say that like the tech should never be driving the bus. It's just a you know, an enabler and a augmenter of people, right?
100%. And lean on the vendors. If you've implemented, if you've got a bit of tech and you're not sure whether you're using it correctly, go and book a call with FreeAgent, or go and book a call with your practice management solution and say, hey, am I doing this right? How are other people doing it? Because they're the best people to speak to about how other people are doing it, because they speak to much more accountants than you ever will.
And ask, don't hesitate, I think, to ask your vendor to put you in touch with another one of their partners who have been successful, and you know, that sort of peer-to-peer recommendation is wildly valuable. I want to move on to Hannah, because I think we could probably go for a long time on this subject, but I would like to hear Hannah's thoughts, because as ever, I wouldn't say we're behind schedule, but Tony doesn't run a very tight ship when it comes to like being free and easy about talking about topics for longer than we perhaps should do. So I'm really interested in your thoughts, Hannah.
Yeah, so we start our reminders pretty much 6th of April or very shortly after. Our reminders are automated to everyone. We use TaxCalc for our tax return filing, but we've also sort of customized it along the way to sort of have a hybrid practice management solution from it as well. So we can use mail merge to look at the tax return status and email everyone who we've not got information from yet. Those continue monthly, and we will add in SMS reminders and phone calls throughout the year as well. Our email reminders go to everyone. They're one size fits all, so they acknowledge in there that if you're using software, tell us when it's up to date. If you're emailing stuff, you can email us back to this email address, or you can hand it in if you need to, so that we're getting everyone. We've also implemented for quite a few years now an extra £100 surcharge for clients providing their information in January to guarantee completion by the deadline. That worked at first, but the longer we've left it running, it's actually losing its effectiveness, because people have learned that if they choose not to pay it, we'll still get it done, because we want to clear our feet before February. So we need to think of something new there. And also training and educating clients as well. So any new clients that get signed up, January might be discussed, but it's November at the latest is when we need your information at the absolute latest. And this year in particular, we're making sure we give feedback to clients on how their records are being given to make sure next year's easier. So we're saying, no, you can't give us 3 different bank statements and credit card statements and only pay us this amount. Use this spreadsheet, go on software, or this is your new fee for us to do that work as well. So I think we're really bad in this industry of just accepting what we're given and just doing the same thing that we always do, and we're not making it any easier for our future selves. So we're really trying to change that this year as well.
That is really interesting, and an honest assessment of where I think where we are as an industry, as a profession. I think that we are. It's still difficult, right? No matter what tech you use, no matter how brutal you are with pricing clients and stuff, it's still hard. Like that's why we had, you know, best part of 1,000 people register for this webinar to hear what other people are doing, and you know, it's not an easy thing, and I think that's always important to remember, because if you knock around in the echo chamber of, you know, LinkedIn and events and things like that, quite often it's easy to feel like you're a long way behind everybody, but actually you're probably not, right? The firms that have got everybody's tax returns done by the end of May they're few and far between, and they're probably not listening to us today, right? Because they've probably got it all sorted. I'm going to touch on your £100 surcharge. So we did a similar webinar last year, and it was a guy called Luke Desmond of Crisp Accountancy, and also runs an app called Volta, which works with FreeAgent to do sort of like salary dividend planning as well. Dude, really like him, get on really, really well with him. He has like a sort of tiered pricing structure that goes up through the year. And he has anybody that comes to him in January. I might not be quoting him fairly, but I think he said he charges them triple what he would normally charge them if they're a new client and they come in January. And he said every year I get a dozen people who'll come in and I'll be like, it would be 300, I'm going to charge you 900, and they're like, yeah, whatever, I just need it done, pay it. So if you want any tips or guidance on how to implement that, like, he's a good bloke to speak to, Luke Desmond. Very kind of keen on this sort of like, you know, if you don't get it in by a certain point, then it just keeps getting kind of more and more expensive for you to get stuff done. And he said, like, you know, we do close the doors and, you know, and say if stuff's not in by this point, and then we get obviously the inevitable swathe. I'm sure you both, Hannah and Anna, I'm sure you both get it every year where you have people who turn up in January with a panic-stricken discovery that they need to file a tax return. You drop the stuff on the desk and, you know, you can see the tears in their eyes, and they'll pay you whatever you need to pay to get it done. You know, unfortunately, we're a caring profession and we want to help businesses, right? So those returns get done more often than they don't. So yeah, there's definitely some stuff in pricing and gearing it up to try and dissuade people. It's an upsetting subject for some, but over time you will probably encounter clients that you need to exit. And you know, and that becomes clearer as you reach, like, almost every new firm that doesn't have some sort of other income behind them. They take on every client that they can just to pay the bills and get to where they need to get to. They price them as a mixed bag, and then over time, then we go, right, you know what, actually that feels like I could improve that, and then start to optimize the numbers of clients and the fit of client to the types of people that you want to work with, right? And one of the criteria is, I always remember working with this firm up in, I think they're in Leeds, and they had a grading system for their clients. And I've told this one on numerous webinars, so apologies if you heard this story before, but they would grade their clients from A to D and 1 to 4 on this sort of like matrix, and it was like how good the quality of the information was and how pleasant they were to deal with, and or how timely they were. And then the person who did the job would then grade them, and an A1 was, they'd get a letter to say, like, we love working for you, like, here's curly whirly or whatever. And then the D4s would get, and it's you can't just go, they're a D4 with no backup. Like, there's got to be some justification for that, but we would trust our staff, right, to be honest about this stuff. And that would be like, the information was bad, they're underpriced, they were rude, you know, they continually ignored reminders, and those they would then have a conversation. So whoever felt comfortable doing that would ring the client up and say, look, this isn't how we do business, and we don't expect you to do business like that with us either. And they'd get a warning, and they said, like, probably 2/3 of them would go, oh, we sort of knew, but we didn't, and we're really sorry, and we still want to keep working with you. And then the other ones would be impolite as a response, and, you know, it's more like, well, I'm paying what am I paying you for type of thing. And they said often they would look to exit them as clients because they probably could find a better fit with somebody else who was maybe more suited to their type of business or their type of ways of working or whatever. So it's an extreme example, but I'm sure there's plenty of people on this call who think of clients that aren't quite the ideal fit for them and might enjoy exiting them for one of their competitors perhaps. Cool. So the next one, the best digital tools you've used to manage your workflow. So we touched on WhatsApp, we touched on Accountancy Manager, we touched on Tax Calc, we touched on Pixie, and we've touched on FreeAgent. And I also mentioned Xero as well, because I used to work for them as well. So trying to avoid our main competitors is probably a good strategy for these types of webinars, but, you know, we're realistic about these things. Will, I'm going to go with you first, mate. Any thoughts?
Honestly,
any advances on you can say Pixie.
Pixie, right? Yeah, Pixie, essentially. No, but I think as well, like, it's very specific to your practice, and that's something that we even say to people that come to Pixie for a demo, right? Practice management is very specific to how you want to work and how you want your practice to run. Different tools have different attributes that might work well for you, that might not work for others. And it's a case of finding the right tools that are you're going to implement well, and you're going to execute on and actually use, rather than, like we just said, right, having something that sits in the background that you're paying a subscription for and don't actually utilize. And it goes the same with your clients as well, right? So if you're going to implement something like FreeAgent with your clients, it's about the education that you do for your clients to make sure that they're using those tools effectively. The same way that you would change a process within your business. Like I always say to firms, like, get your team involved, get everyone involved in that process, in that decision making, get them involved in training as early as possible, and get their buy-in to a system that you're implementing within your firm. Otherwise, they're just not going to use it. And it's the same for your clients, right? Educate them on why you've chosen that piece of software, why it's going to benefit them, and how it's going to benefit them. So, like, I can name tools and things like that, but I think it's not just about the tools that you use, it's how you implement that change within your business and implement that change with your clients. I had a really good conversation with someone that we both know, Lee Stallard, the other day about change, and jumped on his webinar, and it was
really... you're on Counting for Change as well? Counting on Change, sorry, yeah. I think there's a few of us on there, but yeah, it was really interesting to just kind of put my thoughts down on paper and talk about how, like, businesses can implement change and how to do that, because it's not just about implementing it within your practice, it's implementing it with your clients as well, right? And the main reason that change gets rejected is because people don't understand it. Essentially, don't understand why are you giving us this piece of software? What are we supposed to do with it? How do we work with it? I've got no idea. I'm a builder. I don't use an app. What's going on with this? Like, but making sure that you're on Tinder though, aren't you, mate? Well, yeah,
exactly. Exactly, and they're on WhatsApp too, right? So
exactly. Betfair, there's all sorts going on there.
They can now. Probably still go in the bookies and put a bet on, mate, rather than the Betfair app. But yeah, ultimately, it's just that education piece and choosing the right systems that are going to be right for your business, whether that's Pixie, whether it's FreeAgent, whether it's Xero, whatever is going to work for you is the most important thing.
Cool. Yeah, I think I don't have anything to add to that other than totally agree. Hannah, I'm going to come to you next because you were last time.
Yeah, I think it was really interesting what Will was saying there, and I think that practice management, every accountant probably has a different description of what practice management is or means to them, and that's why I don't envy the software companies like Pixie trying to give everyone a usable solution. I already touched on TaxCalc, which for workflow is our biggest thing. The other biggest tool that's really driven efficiencies in our business is Dext, and I know that there's a lot of talk I've even seen popping up in the chat there. For us, because we're a franchise, we are still waiting on the exact details of what the price increase is going to look like for us. But I do plan on sticking with them. I think that the efficiencies it's brought us, particularly in terms of my junior team, not having to sit doing data entry all day, every day, like apprentices now in our industry, because of the likes of Dext, get to be involved in much more interesting work really early on. And I think that that's been really good for us. Another great combination of tools that we're now using, but I don't think we'll see the impact of until maybe the 23 to 24 tax returns, is the combination of Metal and FreeAgent, because we get so many inquiries and new business clients who are just startups. So when they speak to us, they've not got their business bank, they've not really touched on software. So it's really great just from day one to present them with a completely free of charge solution that's really simple for them to use as well.
Good to hear. That's good to hear. I completely agree with all that. I don't think there's much to add. Anyone who's not familiar with Metal, so Metal is our NatWest's challenger bank, like Starling, Monzo, Revolut, Metal, and it's free, so you can set it up. I've been through the process myself. Took me about 20 minutes, and the card arrived like 2 days later. And they've upped all the limits. They're a bank now. Any partners that want to get in touch, look up Chris Roxburgh. I'm sure he will have no problems with me giving him a shout out. But yeah, if you want to talk to as an accountant or bookkeeper, and you want to talk to somebody at Metal, Chris Roxburgh, used to work for FreeAgent, and he's now the sort of partnerships manager at Metal Bank. Brilliant. Anna, your thoughts?
I 100% agree with Hannah. We are also using Dext. We give Dext to all of our clients. And everything you said, Hannah, is spot on. I mean, I think that's Dext brought the most improvement to our practice, to our processes. I think it probably saved us getting another 2 full-time employees, really, because of the time, because of the automation that you can do. Because it's not just about having all the receipts in one place, but it's also about teaching the software how to treat them. So, you know, you can set rules for every supplier. So that's absolutely brilliant. I did mention Accountancy Manager as a practice management software. So we use it on daily basis. So each of our team members, they have obviously their own account and they can see the tasks. So when I set up tasks for my team, I can set the deadlines. You know, some tasks obviously will have obvious deadlines, but there will be some ad hoc things that the team members need to do. And then I've got a visibility of what everyone is doing. We can track the time as well. So that's brilliant. But I think the most important thing with all the softwares is that they actually talk to each other.
Yeah.
So every single software we use, there is an integration. We wouldn't even consider introducing a new software to our practice if it cannot integrate with Accountancy Manager, with FreeAgent, with Text, with using TaxCalc as well. But they all can talk to each other. So again, it just saves us plenty of time of inputting the same information into different software. So the way that Text works with FreeAgent, I just think it's brilliant, because even though we are using FreeAgent, most of the work is really done in Text.
Yeah. Then,
you know, the receipts are being sent to FreeAgent after we already review the categories, review the VAT treatments. So it's just really great. I don't know if it's the same with your practices and your experience, but I think integration is like the biggest thing for us, really.
Very interesting. So it would be, again, remiss of me not to mention that we've been working quite closely with Dext over the course of the last year. I think it's a not very well hidden secret that we do integrate at a practice level with Dext, because we didn't used to and we do now. They also updated for multi-category bills, and they also updated for they had kind of like the old tax rates, and there were some bits and pieces around that, and we're in conversations about how do we bring the feature set up to you know, to full at the moment, and then we'll do some additional kind of go-to-market kind of stuff. So good to hear. I know they've been a bit sticky at the moment with this whole price rise thing, and it's you know, by their own admission, I think perhaps not landed quite how they were hoping it was going to, but still a great tool, and you know, it's definitely one that we hear of again and again. So I'm pleased that that's come out, and I'm glad that that's one that has worked well. And as I say, anybody that is on this call that is a FreeAgent partner that hasn't got their connection to Dex set up, go do it. It's really simple, and it will change things for the better, I am sure. In the interest of time, or your best tactics, we're going to move on to the next one. So the best tactics to build a winning culture and support well-being in your practice. Hannah, I'm going to you first, because when we had our conversation about this previously, you said some really cool stuff that I really liked. So I'm going to you first, and I feel this is an area that you feel quite passionately about. So over to you.
Yeah, and I think the reason I've had to be quite creative in this space is because we are a traditional shopfront model. So we advertise that we are open Monday to Friday, 9 till 5, and having 4 locations means I can't quite embrace the hybrid work and remote work and some of the, you know, work wherever you want, whenever you want mentalities that some other big leading accountancy practices have been able to do. So I started thinking about how else we could support the team. So my team get unlimited paid annual leave, obviously not in January. There's no holidays in January. And really a big part of it is just trying to treat the team like adults. So even with their annual leave, there's no request that they want a holiday. They check the diary, no one else is off, or we're going to have enough office cover with other holidays. They can just go ahead and book it with no permission from me needed. On the wellbeing side of it, my whole team have access to Health Assured, which is an employee assistance program, and their families actually can access that as well. We also work regularly with a lady called Katie Maycock, who you can find on LinkedIn. Katie specialises in sort of managing stress and preventing burnout, because I think, you know, stress is seen as a bit of a dirty word, but actually there's good stress that we can work well under, and that risks turning into burnout when it's prolonged and not sort of helped. And someone, quite often, if you're not looking after yourself in terms of sleeping, eating, keeping fit, that's actually where your stress can turn into burnout. So it's not actually even things that I as an employer can change, but I can educate my team on how they can be looking after themselves and making sure that they have that balance as well. Where we've needed to in the past, we've even went to sort of paid business psychologist to do some more one-on-one work with anyone in the team that was particularly struggling with potentially, you know, personal issues, but me wanting to support them through that, because we have to spend so much of our time at work that I want people to be happy and healthy when they are here.
Work not feel quite so much like work, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's
and
amazing.
Also, I guess the last thing is when it comes to January, trying to make it fun. So yeah, feeding the team's a big part of that and just keeping them going. But we've had Januaries where we had like a balloon blown up for every tax return still to be filed, and we'd take turns in popping them when the last returns were filed. We sort of had about 3 in the cupboard at the end of the day who hadn't bothered signing off on them. So we're like, we're not going to let them spoil the fun. We'll just hide those. And there's been some Januaries where, you know, by lunchtime we're drinking champagne and having cupcakes. There's other Januaries by the 31st we're still working at 5 p.m. You know, you've just got to take the rough with the smooth.
Yeah. I just love this idea of this
That's
being
so
three balloons. I bet they're still in a cupboard somewhere and they've just like withered down.
About a year later, yeah, like shriveled balloons. I was like, oh yeah, and obviously we had them blue and yellow as well because our branding's same as yours. So yeah, just these little shriveled balloons in the cupboard.
I bought my wife a helium balloon for her birthday this year, and unfortunately my daughter loved it, so it sort of survived for 3 or 4 months in our house. It's gone now. I should this is appropriate junction to say that I'm quite pleased we managed to get through this webinar so far. My daughter did not have a very good night last night. She's 8 months old, and her name is Seren, and I called her Terence this morning, which I'm not quite sure where it came from, but little Terence is having fun at nursery today, at Childminders, sorry. So yeah, amazing. Katie Maycock, I follow her on LinkedIn. I've seen she seems to talk some good sense, and yeah, that the whole idea of sort of is distress versus eustress. Like eustress is kind of like EU stress. It's like motivating and gets more out of people, and that's like when you can see a goal and a target and you're agitated towards doing that stuff, but that's good. And then distress is when it tips over the edge and you can't see the end, and it's prolonged, and and that's not where we want to be. And I guess it's probably you can have those periods where everyone kind of pulls together, and that culture of pulling together and getting this stuff done as a team is really important. And you don't want that, oh, see ya, I'm off at 2 o'clock and there's some 3 of them are still there. Can you don't mind turning the lights off on the way out kind of thing? I'm going to the pub with everyone else and you lot are still working. So yeah, that's there's some really good ideas in that, and I will be chuckling about those balloons in that cupboard for a while. I'm going to go to you, Anna, next.
Hannah, I just want to say I love the ideas you gave me. I actually noted a couple of them because they were so good. I think it's just so important. We as a firm as well, we provide the private health insurance to employees, and I think it is quite important. I mean, even if people don't have to use it that often, it's one of these things that gives them the peace of mind if anything happens to them or their families. They feel protected. But I think what's very important is that day-to-day atmosphere at work, because like you said, we spend quite a lot of time in the office. We also, most of the team is based in the office Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. So it's just important that we feel happy when we come to work, and I must say that I feel very happy when I come to work, and I think my colleagues also do what they're saying. What I think is very important is to communicate and to listen, because I remember when I was an employee in a practice or in other businesses, I really wanted to be listened because I had these brilliant ideas, but it didn't always happen. So what I'm trying to do is just to listen and to embrace, to involve the employees. What I think helps as well is when we let the employees to communicate directly with clients, because that builds this relationship. They almost feel like they own the business and they own this relationship with clients. Because when they talk to clients, you don't only talk about tax return, but you talk about holidays and about the issues they may have and about school runs and things like that. So it's not just me who actually have this close relationship with the clients that I brought to the business, but it's actually even very junior employees. They still have this communication and this relationship, and I think it helps them to feel happy and feel engaged when they're actually coming to work.
Excellent. I think you're right. I think it's all about that feeling like you're part of the family, right, and part of the team, and not isolating people and giving them support when they need it, and treating them like grown-ups, right? I can't remember who the quote is attributed to, but it's something along the lines of, when you trust people, their IQ doubles. I think it's very true, right? Will, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think managing a team is the same in most businesses, right? You need to be able to involve them in decisions that you're making, but also give them responsibility to make the decisions themselves as well, to some degrees. Like, don't always give them the answers to the questions that they come to you with. Like, encourage them to go out and find that information, and encourage them to take ownership of whether that be their pool of clients or their piece of work that they're doing, rather than relying on you as their direct line manager or the business owner. You can't be across everything. They are your eyes and ears on the ground, right, when it comes to speaking to clients or the work that you're doing. And if you've got 200 or 900 self-assessment tax returns, like Hannah said she's got, there's no way that she can be across every 900 of those, like, on a day-to-day basis. So you need to be
saying, Will, Hannah is all over that, every single one of them.
I wouldn't expect her to be, or want her to be either, really. I don't think she would want to be either. But ultimately, like, if you've got a team that you can trust, and you've built that trust in them to make those decisions and own their workload themselves, then that breeds a culture. So when you bring anyone else into the business, they see that straight away, not just from you talking about it, but they see it from their peers. And that's how people learn and people grow within their roles, right?
Yeah, I think so. It's a funny thing, culture, but I've worked in some good ones and I've worked in some not so good ones, and it's hard to put your finger on it. But I always think that a mindset of wanting the best for your employees, like, you can still go wrong, but if you adopt that first, is it Richard Branson who says, like, you should train your employees? What's the quote? Train your employees so that they can leave, but treat them so well that they don't want to, or something along those lines.
Yep.
Like, it's that mindset of putting them first. And because ultimately, I think it's easy to go, well, we've got clients and they pay us money, so let's put them first. But if you don't have any staff, especially in the environment that we're in at the moment, with the, what did I hear it called the other day? Talent crush. It's difficult to find good people, right? That's a whole other webinar for a whole other day. And we are sort of over time, so I'm just going to skip on to the last question. We are over time, so let's do a quick fire one on this one. Anna, your top tip for tackling process improvements in your practice?
First of all, stay up to date. So go to any conferences where you can find out about new products, because unless you actually know that they exist, you will never use them.
Yep.
So stay up to date and listen to the employees, talk to your team, ask them where there are problems, the processes that they don't think are working, and identify where you actually need improvement and how you can do it better.
Excellent. Will, you're up next.
I think we've covered most of that, right, in the conversation that we've had. But I think the key thing is when you're looking at process improvement in your practice as a whole, is involving the stakeholders within the decision-making process, making sure that everybody is across why you're changing that piece of software or why you're implementing that within the business, so that they can buy into it and kind of live it and breathe it, as it were.
Yeah, from my background, I wholeheartedly support that notion of buy-in from everybody, finding the right people who actually understand the problems, and then as the leader, your role is to understand how that works from a top-down approach, rather than it being just that one little isolated thing that might break something else. And also, I would say, like, we would stand by our implementation and our support. Lean on your vendor if they come up short. It's a really bad 100%. Sign. A really bad sign. If they can't support you in that implementation, then there's probably something not good there. So and we started with Hannah, so we're going to close out with Hannah. Your thoughts, quick fire on tackling process improvements?
Similar to what the other guys were saying. So, engaging and involving the whole team in it. If they spot an issue with the process, or they spot a process that's actually missing, that they do something every day and we've not got a process for, they should be flagging that up so we can create it. All of our processes are documented, and we've got corresponding Loom videos that shows them for anyone that learns that way. We also have a feedback strategy, so we track every piece of feedback, positive, negative, from our clients, and not just complaints, but those little grumbles that people will sometimes just mention where they're not really complaining, but you can tell that it could have been better. Those are all tracked and documented so we can identify trends and potential issues with our processes that need improved.
Awesome. We brought it back home. I consider 4 minutes over to be on time. In fact, I actually would consider that to be early by my own standards. What it does mean is that we haven't really got much time for a Q&A. So I am just going to have a quick look at some of the questions. Thank you, Christopher Clark. What happens if we train our employees and they leave? What happens if we don't and they stay? It's a slightly different quote, but I do like that. Yeah. Does the Dex FreeAgent practice integration come for free? I'm afraid, anonymous attendee, the integration does, but Dex is not free. FreeAgent is free you'll have to contact them if there's a free trial. I couldn't speak. Usual questions. Can I get a certificate for CPD? You'll get emailed it afterwards. Can businesses with no NatWest bank account use FreeAgent? Yes, you can, absolutely, but there is a cost involved, and the short answer, as is always, it depends. Best method to find new clients. You think Bark offers the best value? Don't know is the honest answer to that question, and probably not one for us to discuss today. Does help the use of marketing, especially for freelance bookkeepers. Yep, just give your account manager a shout and they'll be able to help you with some guidance there. I've got a client who uses FreeAgent, need to alter the depreciation amount. Technical question, support will be able to help you with that, Karen. Brilliant. So while I launch this final poll, and let me just do this. So I'm going to launch this final poll. So this is again, if you want us to get in touch with you and have a shout about FreeAgent, we'll do the demo shortly after this. Don't worry, we're not going to skip that. While we do that, I will just say thank you. So first of all, I'd like to say thank you to our wonderful panelists. I've really enjoyed today's session. It has been really interesting. We've had a good laugh. I think we've covered some really good ground as well. I always like it when panelists take tips from each other, so that was a nice touch there, Anna. I think that I'm sure that everybody, the near on 300 of us that we had here that attended, will have no doubt picked up loads of gold. So in the chat, guys, if you could show your love for the panelists and say thanks and how much you appreciated their inputs, I'd really appreciate that. A few more thanks. So thanks from everybody on the FreeAgent flight deck for answering the questions and manning the chat and keeping things bouncing. Really appreciate that. Thanks to everyone in the background, Georgia and our practice comms team. You wouldn't believe the amount of work that goes into putting one of these webinars on to make sure that our whole process for like attendees to attend, guests to be, brought in and helped to feel comfortable with the experience, and then all the sort of follow-ups and stuff that goes on afterwards. There is a whole battleship behind it, and I always feel really guilty because I just rock up and I'm a gun for hire and just talk for an hour, and they just sit there with their fingers crossed hoping that I won't say anything too wild or too stupid. So yeah, thanks to everybody. Thanks to Design for the great slides and illustrations, and comms, thanks to everybody who's been here, but most of all, thanks to our audience. So thank you very much, everybody, for tuning in. If you would like to stick around for the next 10-15 minutes just to see how FreeAgent sort of operates, looks and feels, then you are more than welcome to. Louise will be taking us through that, but if you don't, then you're more than welcome to drop off now. And again, thank you very much for your participation. Panelists, you're welcome to stick around if you like to, but if not, class dismissed. Thank you very much. Chat's gone wild, so if I was you, I'd stick around and have a look at the love in the chat for a few minutes before you drop off. But I will end that poll, and then I am not going to share the results for that because that's not important. And then what I'm going to do is go on to live. Louise, there she is. So I will hand over to you now, mate, and you can take us through the demo, and I'll put myself on mute. If you need anything from me, I will be here.
Cool, thank you. Can you stop sharing the screen as well? Right, hello. Yes, I am Louise, and thanks Tony for that. I am part of the implementation team here at FreeAgent. So if you do have any FreeAgent training at any point, it could be with myself or one of the other implementation teams. So I'm hoping you can see my screen. Yeah, thumbs up there from Tony. I can see you. Can you see that okay? Perfect. So the chat box and the QAs are still open. So if you do have any questions whilst I just go through a couple of things, feel free to put them in there and we can answer them best that we can. So as you can see, I have got here a sort of split screen going on. So on the left-hand side, I have got my client dashboard, and that's what I see when I log in on my computer. And on the right-hand side, I have my mobile app. So as you can see, they sort of mirror each other. Obviously, you get a bit more information because there's a bit more space on a desktop computer there. But on the app, you can still see pretty much everything that you need to see. I wanted to run through a couple of things on our mobile app just to show you how easy it is for clients to use and how well it works and how it syncs when within the desktop as well. So the button that is most used is this green one at the bottom here. If I select that, you should be able to see that you can add new expenses, mileage, invoice, etc. And I'm going to just select on invoice just to show you how your clients can create their invoices easily from the app itself. So they can use the drop down to select the contact, and all the contacts will be in there in the contacts section, and you can just select which one the invoice is going to. FreeAgent does project costing as well, so you could select that. And it also uses global sequencing, so it pulls through the next available number. The amount of information that you put into your contacts will pull through. So I've got due dates and payment terms, rather, I should say, in my contact here. So that's pulled that through there. And you can also use foreign currencies as well. FreeAgent deals with that really well. If I then click create new invoice and add invoice line items, here I can select the add invoice items. There's a couple of ways I can do that. It might be a new item that I just need to input the description, input the quantities, etc. Or it might be an item that I use all the time, and I have got a price list here, which I have created. I could select whichever one that is, and then I can just click add item. I can either add it and add another if I've got several items to put on this one particular invoice, or I could just click add invoice item. If I click add another item, I will just show you how I could just input anything into the description here. And input the amount as well. And then I can just click add item to invoice. You'll see then that's my completed invoice. It's got the contact, it's got the amount. And if I just select send invoice, that will create an email there to directly send that out to the contact. And if I select send, that will automatically send them out to them. And if I by magic go to work on my desktop app and select invoicing, you'll see that the invoice is already there, open and due in about a month. So it just shows you how quickly your clients can do stuff on the app, and you'll be able to see it if you logged in on the desktop as well. Another thing I'd like to show you on the app actually is a really handy tool that a lot of our accountants do enjoy, and that is the banking section. If I go to the three dots on the side and select banking, I can select my current account here. And if I use the three dots in the right-hand top right-hand corner there, you'll see that I can enable a bank feed. So lots of accountants say that clients find it difficult sometimes to do bank feeds when they don't know what their login details are, and also they have to reconsent every 90 days. Through our mobile app, you can do it directly, and if your clients have got their banking app on their same mobile phone, they can talk to each other and then use the phone's security. It is really handy. It means that people don't need to remember their login details, etc. on the desktop. And the other good thing about it is, as well, as you as the accountant can do the reconsent in 90 days as well, so they don't have to keep doing it also. You can also allocate payments, look at unexplained transactions, and look at stuff for approval as well. And you as the accountant can also log into their client's app just using the same logins that you do to get into your practice portal. If I now have a little look into more detail at the desktop itself, as you can see, you've got an overview here of things going in and out, etc. And again, if you looked at any of the tabs along the top, they do mirror what is on the mobile app as well. As today's webinar has been mostly on self-assessment, I thought I'd have a look and show you the self-assessment. Can't talk. Self-assessment. That's quite a mouthful. That self-assessment section within FreeAgent. So if I click self-assessment here, you'll see we have got the self-assessment summary. We have a drop down of all of the directors or users to the business that wouldn't necessarily require a self-assessment return. If I select the top one here, and then I can click down into 22-23 tax year. Here is what you obviously expect to see as accountants, a tax return and what the tax return looks like. Mirrors very similar to what is on the HMRC when you log in directly through there. You've got your main return. You've also got a nice green tick here, which will show you when all the required fields are complete. You've then on the right-hand side got the other pages that you would require, for instance, employment. And if you do choose to use FreeAgent's payroll, it will pull all that information through directly from that. So it requires very little if you are using FreeAgent for everything. You've also got the tax adjustment pages. And again, all of them do have the green tick to let you know when all those files are complete. And then you would just select your tax breakdown here. Your tax breakdown will obviously show you what's due now. It shows you the first payment on account and the second payment on account as well. And you can mark them as paid also through here when they have been paid through. It also obviously shows you when they are due. Obviously, you can file directly through HMRC through here as well. Obviously, my demo account isn't set up into the gateway, but if you obviously prepare to file online, that will file and then mark that as filed on the self-assessment summary as well. And that is just a little guide to a bit about FreeAgent. I don't know if there is any questions in there. I don't know if Tony's been having a look.
Tony hasn't had a look, but there's nothing in the chat, so I can see.
Okay.
There's some Q&A ones that I think are there before. I will launch the final poll, folks. So for the 115 of you that have stuck around right to the end, I will launch a poll now. So if any of you do want to have somebody from FreeAgent get in touch with you to talk about becoming a partner, you can have a one-to-one consultation with one of our team, then we will be more than happy to do that. So we'll just let that run for a minute or so. As I said, there's always a few that were kind of like, man, I'm not sure yet. I want to see the product yet. So yeah, I'll just let that run for a little while. And thank you very much, Louise. Smashed it, mate.
No problems.
What I also forgot to mention, and I will mention it now, is that I mentioned Hannah did a skydive. I also forgot to mention that Hannah was raising money for charity for that skydive. So if you wanted to donate to Hannah's charity efforts for Alzheimer's, then look her up on LinkedIn and she will be more than grateful, I am sure. Cool. I think we've reached a plateau. There's no more final chance. If you do want somebody to get in touch, then just chuck it in now. And then if not, we will end the poll. Yeah. And that's it, folks. Thank you very much. Much appreciated. Thank you very much for your time and attention. And we'll look forward to seeing you on the next one. Bye.
Bye.